Today I have Sakurai-san, who's been creating Kid Icarus Uprising that we've just announced.
Hello.
But Kid Icarus isn't a name that resonates with Japanese people.
Correct. Yeah, in Japan the title is New Legend of Light, Mirror of Palutena.
Since this title is finally seeing the light of day again, I'm sure many people are excited. Please, explain to me how it happened.
It has been almost 25 years.
Right.
I think the big question is how I ended up working on Kid Icarus. I think that's a really important topic. But before we get into that, maybe we should first explain what the two of us talked about back in July 2008.
I agree.
At that time, you revealed to me that the Nintendo 3DS system was in development. It was the first time you talked about the device with anyone outside the company.
Right. It was during the very early stages of development where specifications were much in flux. You were the first developer outside of Nintendo that we spoke with about this next handheld device.
Yeah, it wasn't decided for sure at the time whether it was going to have a stereoscopic screen, but I did hear that it would be good at rendering 3D graphics, including all sorts of screen processing and such. It would be able to display 3D images at a completely different level than the traditional Nintendo DS systems.
Right.
So I thought about making a game in 3D, but now if I was going to make one, I wanted to make something new and yet sort of traditional at the same time.
What do you mean by standard yet new?
Many games on the Nintendo DS system use the stylus as if it were a mouse. For example, if you're aiming with a targeting reticle, you minutely move around the stylus, which is fine, but when you have to do things like suddenly make a sharp turn or do a 180 and perform an action right away, it always felt like you were forced to perform those actions very slowly. So I felt that if I was to make a game in 3D, it was absolutely necessary to be able to move the camera and the character simultaneously. I wanted to make something that handled that combination well.
You wanted to make a new standard in the way players would move the camera to aim while being able to move around dynamically. This was a key element you wanted to accomplish.
Yeah, so in this game, you play with the slider pad, the L button is for firing, and you have the stylus. And by focusing the overall controls on those three things, I'm aiming to make it as simple as possible. Okay, I went off track there a bit, but anyway, I was putting this new plan together, and as I was working on this new project, there was one more thing that we talked about. You asked if I had any ideas. You wanted me to make something based off of a Nintendo series. You wanted me to make something.
You asked if you wanted to work on a specific title.
Whatever that would be, I was going to give it my all, but I had been hearing about how much gamers wanted the revival of certain old franchises, but hadn't got them. And with experience making Super Smash Bros.
Well, a lot of characters appear in Super Smash Bros. Series, but where are their games?
Exactly.
They somehow accuse you saying, what are you going to do about it?
I thought before all of this that if such a request came from you, I would be open to the idea, and that I should be able to do whatever it takes to work on it.
Right.
So the plan document I made involved shooting, but it was one where you fly doing mid-air combat, get to the destination, and from there you proceed to the end in land combat, and finally fight the boss.
You have to make both mid-air and land combat.
Yeah, basically.
And with how the Kid Icarus games hasn't been made in a long time, it was entirely up to you in creating the adventures, including the world that it would take place in. There really wasn't anything you could work off of.
The only things that had been created previously were the design for Pit and Palutena, and even those I looked at from scratch. Pit is an angel that can't fly, so I thought a system would work where he's given the power to fly for 5 minutes, and he spends those 5 minutes getting to the land battle destination. From there, he fights on land. The idea seemed solid, so I moved ahead on a new Kid Icarus.
Right. I remember we talked about the possibility of recreating Kid Icarus in part because the game was popular more overseas than in Japan, and has been sought after in the world for so many years.
I heard that all the time. People are always wondering when the new Kid Icarus game was coming out.
Now to close this, let's hear a message from you to those who are excited that the game has been announced and can't wait for it to come out.
Well, this project is moving along with many seemingly contradicting factors working together. From its traditional yet new gameplay to the fact that we're trying to achieve something in a very niche genre that retains accessible controls. I think, for example, first-person shooter fans may be wondering about some of the design choices, wondering why we chose to make certain things the way they are. These decisions were made purposely, similar to the way Super Smash Bros. Was made in the face of traditional 2D fighting games. By focusing game controls around 3 key functions, striving to make those functions as easy as possible, and remembering the fact that you can get through the game without having to destroy every single enemy, I think there will be a lot of fun to be had for both beginners and advanced players. I hope you're all looking forward to the game.